This is a Double Face, a true crime podcast. Please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe and get the notifications when a new episode drops. Please help by leaving a 5-star review. It helps the small podcasters like ourselves. Thank you again. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Oli Olis. Hey guys, so sorry, I'm under the weather, but we're pushing through and we're just gonna keep going. So we've had a busy week. We'll talk about it next time.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm too exhausted. So good thing it's not my turn.
I know. I was like, luckily it's not your turn. It's my turn.
Yeah.
So when looking for a case, I usually gravitate to whatever the
Texas.
title is. Well, Texas especially, but this one I know my last case was about a massacre, and then so is this one, only because I gravitated to it. It's reason why, and I had never heard of it, and you probably haven't either. Maybe you have, no say, but this is the Lubys Massacre. Have you heard of it? No. Okay. So this was in Killeen, Texas, home of Fort Hood, nicknamed Military City, on October 16th, 1991. And Killeen sits, about 164 miles north of San Antonio. Yeah. So up towards Austin.
Super
like
close.
2.5 hour drive. And I'm going to give you a short synopsis of who the killer is because, again, so many signs and everybody just, kind of just threw him too.
Ignored it.
Yeah, ignored it. So, and I will only use the first name. I won't use his last name. So in 1974, George had enlisted in the United States Navy.
Why not his last name?
Because he was never charged.
Oh.
Yeah, usually with massacres, it's like they want to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, if they're not charged, why use the full name?
Correct.
Is how I see it. So in 1974, George had enlisted in the United States Navy, and he was honorably discharged. Oh my God, that was a tongue twister for me. I don't know why. And then in 1981, he was arrested for marijuana possession. In 1982, he was suspended after having a racial argument with a shipmate because since he was honorably discharged, he was able to still work as a merchant marine. And what they do is they kind of handle the ships, and they transport cargo and passengers at any time that there's like peacetime. During the war, they kind of just make sure that everything's in line, any supplies that they need, stuff like that. So that's what he was doing at the time. In 1989, he was suspended again for marijuana possession aboard the cargo ship, and that's when they finally decided, like, it's one too many times. Like, we're gonna take They had like a little, like a little license for them to be able to be on the ship and stuff like that. So they took everything away from him, and he tried to fight it, but they're like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, you're giving chance after chance.
Yes, exactly. Then he became prejudiced against women, but especially white women. At some point, he thought that
You don't hear that often.
Exactly. At some point, he thought that it was a group of white women that had gotten together and formed a national-wide conspiracy against him and prevented him from dating other women because he enjoyed dating Hispanic women. He did a lot of traveling to Thailand, so he enjoyed that ethnicity as well. So that's why he just thought, they're against me. They don't want me to date them. That's what exactly. And these are
That's a stupid theory.
Exactly. And this came out in one of his when he was trying to fight for to get back onto the ship. It came out that they're like, my rights have been taken away from me, and so he came up with that story, and they're like, no, you didn't. No, you're fine. But that's again, you let him go.
So just the victim mentality.
Yeah, exactly. And so George was staying in his childhood home in Belton, Texas, called The Mansion. His father was selling that home since it became too much for him to handle after the divorce of his parents, after the divorce of George and his mom. And then George fought with his father to sell it because he didn't want them to sell it. Like, he grew up there, and so he's like, no, like, don't sell it. And then he got into it with his father. They had a fight, and I'm not sure if it was during the fight or after that his father told him, you're suffering from schizophrenia and split personality. And George's father was a doctor, so that's why he was able to see the signs.
I was like, how do you know?
He was a doctor, so that's why he was able, but he was never diagnosed. It's just something his dad saw and told him, like, you need to go get checked or we need to do something. But, of course, he never spoke to his father again. And then George was back and forth between Texas and Nevada because his mom lived in Nevada.
Okay.
So George was able to purchase 2 guns from Mike's gun house in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was a Glock 17 and a Ruger P89. And and this guy was selling his guns from his home. This is how crazy it was in the early 90s. Like, it was so easy to, I mean, it's not that it's hard now.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but it's more, it was a little bit more easier then too. Or as far as like whenever they do a background check, so to speak. So he was able to purchase those 2 guns, and he also loved watching true crime shows to kind of guess. It was crazy when I said that. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, I've
actually heard that before, that I don't know what it was. It wasn't a serial killer, but it was somebody like that. Mm-hmm. He would like to watch it as well. Mm-hmm.
So it was, and back then it was, I think it was Unsolved Mysteries, and I want to say it was, I can't remember the other one.
Well, that was a good show, Unsolved Mysteries. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of come back on Netflix, but it's not that creepy man's voice.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
No, anytime you heard it, you already knew, oh shit, something's gonna go down. Dang it.
Very tuned to him.
Yeah, yeah. So George drove 19 miles in his blue Ford Ranger truck to Belton, Texas, from Belton, Texas to Killeen to carry out this mass shooting. It is unknown why he picked this location. Like, nobody knows why he drove the 19 miles and picked Lubys to be what would become of that day.
But he was well familiar of that area, right?
Yeah, because I'm assuming
something simple. White waitress didn't like him.
Yeah, and because I'm assuming that Belton isn't so big, so you have to travel out to get to all these little restaurants.
Sorry if you hear me sniffling. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
And this day, which was October 16th, was also Boss's Day.
Oh.
So lunch hour was pretty crowded.
Busy.
Yeah, it was pretty crowded inside the Lubys location. They would say
Lubys has good fish.
And yeah, because you have your seniors going in, your older crowd. You have since Fort Hood is not that far, you had them. You had schools.
So it was just busy.
It was busy. About 150 people were in there. At 12:39, 35-year-old George drove into the glass window at the Lubys cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. Landing about 20 feet into the restaurant, people inside were worried that the driver was like, something happened. Oh my God, like he drove into the glass window, like there had to have been a medical emergency.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the people that were able to get up and tried to start going to see if he was okay. One of those people happened to be Tom Simmons, and he was making his way to the passenger door when George started instantly shooting towards him. He shot Tom 4 times. Tom stumbled back and landed on the ground, and that would be his first victim. At this point, people started running because they see that he's shooting towards this way, because at first you don't hear the gunfire. You just see that the truck drove into it. And then out of the vehicle, George comes out with both guns, the semi-automatic pistols, in his hand, and began shooting at the people inside, yelling, "These women in Belton, they're gonna see what's gonna happen." So then George,
I understand, man, right? Like, fucking your ego, man.
And mind you, since this is not a big location, it's a back and forth going around the restaurant, because obviously if you've ever been into a Lubys, it's kind of like either a roundabout, or it's not really where you can go in a circle, you know what I mean?
No, so it curves to the right.
Yeah,
so it's a cafeteria style, mm-hmm. and then it curves to the right for seats, right? Mm-hmm. And usually the restrooms, or where I've been, is that they're at the very back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there aren't that many exits back there. No. Mm-hmm. There you could, but when you say roundabout, it actually is almost a roundabout, because
it's like
you can go through the kitchen and come back out. Yeah. So you can.
Yeah, so it's like a back and forth.
Like an L shape.
Yeah, like an L shape. Yeah, pretty much. So then George randomly started shooting, and within seconds he shot 34 rounds. And then, of course, like I said, George makes it back and forth, trying to look for people. And mind you,
is he looking for women or just anyone?
at this point, it's anyone. But I think if he the way I understood it, if he saw a woman, he was going to gravitate to the woman first. So mind you, a lot of people flip tables over so that way they could, hide or find somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Because it's like an instant. You're trying to like figure it out, and then when you hear gunshots, like, oh my God, let's look for safety. So.
And the one thing, if it's exactly like our Lubys, is it has both booths and tables. So I could see them flipping that over. Booths, no, right? Because you can't.
Yeah.
But
unless they didn't have booths it didn't say like booth. It just kept saying tables. That's all they kept saying.
I'm just saying because that's how it's been for a very, very long time. Is that they have booths and tables, right? To seat you. Booths are usually in the center or around where the windows are. But it's a very exposed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, let me see, what was I? So at the first table that he headed to, there were several women. He started shooting at them. One of them didn't make it. And I wish I could say their names, but I know we would get confused with all their names. But they have their names listed.
We would. Poor things.
Yeah. Second table had 6 people from the Killeen School District hiding. George made his way to that table yelling, "Wait until the women of Belton hear this." It was a constant thing with that. And I wonder what they'll think. Was it worth it? George aimed his gun underneath the table, fired several shots. 2 did not survive.
Oh my God, that's so ugly,
Yeah.
right? That.
Yeah. The bullet also hit a man that was hiding next to that group of people. And he was a teacher, and he said, he told the teachers, "Please don't let me die." And sadly, he loses his life. George made his way to Sylvia King, who was alone and on her way out of the restaurant. So she was kind of exposed. On her way out of the restaurant, like she literally had her receipt and her money in her hand, and she was about to walk out when this happened. He shot and killed her. George started to make his way around the building, randomly firing shots, yelling, "What Belton did to me and my family, they're going to pay for it. I hope it's worth it." Because his parents got a divorce, so of course he didn't take that very lightly. So he's blaming somebody else for that.
Oh my God, mommy and daddy are broken up. What the fuck?
George approached another table with 2 women hiding under that table. Both women were shot at point blank range, and they were best friends. And they were out there just having, lunch, as normal people do. He continued his way around the building, randomly shooting, with also a grin on his face. And I was just like, oh my God, this is sad. And because this story is being told because of the survivors that were in there, that's why some of this is in great detail. Most of the Lubys employees were able to escape. They survived because of the counter where they serve all the food. Yeah. So they were able to have that as a shield and then make their way to the back of the building and get out through there.
That sucks, right? That they knew how to get out, right?
Yeah, because they any place of business or any school at this point now show you how to exit the building if anything like this were to ever occur. I know for us they do it. So yeah. George approached yet another table, and a married couple was hiding under it, and both of them were killed instantly. Oh my God. And then there was a table right next to the couple, and that's where he shot. It said he shot, and he killed one more person next to that couple. And I'm just like, and this one was point blank range. Like, I'm assuming, because it doesn't say that he's kneeling to all of these tables. Can you imagine? Because he would, it just the way you map it out in your head and the way you see the scene, it doesn't make sense for him to kneel down every time. But the people that were shot at point blank range is just, it's heartbreaking. All the way around it is.
Well, seeing that they were crouching down and hiding their tables like that, they really didn't have much options. Yeah. They didn't know to run to the kitchen and get out through there. Exactly.
And then even if they tried, because it does state that 2 more employees were able to run to the back, but because the door was locked, because once you exit through the outside, it kind of locks. So the person that had the key had already escaped. So they had to find different places to hide. One hid in the refrigerator, and the other one hid where they wash the dishes, kind of in that area. And I was like, oh my god. And they stayed there for a long time. I think they would stay there till like the evening, where they're like, okay, we're finally safe. Two more,
God.
yeah. I could just imagine, them hiding. Like, it was. Two more men were trying to escape as George was reloading his gun. He saw them and started shooting in their direction. One was hit in the chest and one was hit in the hip. One of the men does not make it, which is the one that was shot in the chest, and yells again. I hope it's worth it. The women of Belton and Colleen are vipers.
So they're trying to blame.
It's a constant repeat with his yelling. George made his way to north of the building, where he shot and killed another woman. Table where a man and a woman were hiding, and the man was shot at point blank range in the forehead, while the woman was shielded by his body. But that was his choice. His choice was to protect his friend. When it all happened, he said, I'm going to lay in front of you and I'm going to protect you. And just happened to get to that table and shoot the man at point blank range. George made his way to another table close to the crash site where the truck had gone in through. He approached a man, a woman. Well, it's a man, his wife, and his daughter. And the man decided to charge at George, wrestling the gun, tried to get it out of his hand.
Finally, someone, right?
Yeah. And to put an end to the horrific tragedy that was happening.
I'm so sorry.
But George was able to overpower the 70-year-old man and shot him right in the chest.
Oh, my God.
The daughter was able to escape as soon as George walked away from the table, but the 70-year-old man's wife made her way to her husband, cradled him as he took his last breath. George would then walk back towards the woman, and the woman would gradually look up at him and then look back down, and George would shoot her on the top of the head.
What a fucking monster. What a horrible oh.
Yeah. When I heard that one, not that none of them got me, but it's her knowing that there's nothing else she can do but she wants to be with her husband.
Yeah, let her at least fucking mourn, be with him at the last minute. Mm-hmm. What a fucking piece of shit. Please tell me he's dead.
The daughter would later say, because remember the daughter survives, she would later say that they had just celebrated their 46th wedding anniversary and she wasn't going to leave without him.
Oh my God.
George was on his way to where the line usually forms, when you first walk in, and you could kind of start ordering your food, and those people were the most exposed, because remember, there's no tables up in the front. You're just going in line. So there was little to nothing to protect them other than the benches that were kind of sitting like when you're waiting. And some people were hiding underneath there. George eventually started shooting in that direction, where he killed 2 more women. George then made his way to the other benches as he's making his way, walking through wherever he can find somebody. So he's walking his way to the other benches where 2 more women are hiding, fired 2 shots, and one of those women did not survive.
Oh my goodness.
Then George made his way back to tables where there was a woman hiding. He shot her, but his gun was out of bullets. So she was able to survive because he had no more bullets in that gun. Placed that gun on the counter. Then he made his way around again to the restaurant, like another circle around the restaurant, looking for more people to kill. He made his way back to the crash site where he found 2 women and a 4-year-old.
No.
One of the women was hurt. Her leg was hurt when the truck had landed into the restaurant. George kneels down. This is the only time he kneels down, and makes eye contact with the woman that has the child. And it says, tells people, I am killing babies today. Get out of here before I kill both of you. So the mother and the child run to safety, but the grandmother is left behind because she's hurt with her leg, like she can't get up. So it's either the daughter, which is the mom, had to make a choice between the child and her mother. Of course, 4-year-old child. Yeah. And so they run out to safety.
I would assume that her mother is telling her,
probably,
leave.
Yeah. Yeah. They might have had a conversation prior to, because Again, he hadn't seen them until later on. George would shoot the woman at point blank range and killing her instantly.
The grandmother.
The grandmother.
Oh my God. He has no sense of humanity.
George had continued looking for people. At the same time, there was a group of people that were hiding at the corner of the room. It doesn't tell me what direction. Where two men bravely finally went through a window. Because mind you, the only entrance and exit was in the front. Everything else was like you said, either tables or boots were going to be in the way. So they bravely went through the window where 15 people were able to run out at that time.
Oh, thank goodness.
But of course, George sees them and he starts shooting in their direction. Of course, every shot misses the group. As people are running out of the restaurant for safety, because remember, since it's beginning, people are running out and scattering everywhere. Because it looks like it might have been in like a shopping strip area, or it's somewhere close where a bunch of businesses were around. So people were running to safety and running to nearby businesses asking for help. There happened to be two narcotics officers that answer a 911 call, because the 911 calls come in almost immediately. And these two officers had just finished raiding, so they were on their way back to their to wherever they go. I don't know where they go. And
to do paperwork.
Yeah, to do paperwork, I guess. And they were in plain clothes, so that's the reason why nobody recognized that they were already. There was already help.
There were officers.
There. Yeah. And so when the officers get there, they start trying to make their way into the restaurant, but then, of course, George sees them and starts firing. So of course they have to like find their way through cars, trying to keep an eye on him, trying to make sure that they don't lose him, and still try to make a safety plan for them to be able to get in, because
seize them in the sense of because they're holding guns.
Yeah, because remember they're coming in already ready. Yeah, well, they don't have nothing, they're playing.
Okay,
but he's just shooting because he sees somebody coming towards the building.
Oh, rather than running away from it.
Yeah, exactly, because he doesn't know that they're undercover or whatever they were doing. Of course they're hiding, but one of them keeps his eye on George and starts shooting at him. And at this point, they realize that they need backup, so they're going to have to strategically move into the building, so that way they're because they're like they lose their lives, there goes the help. Yes. As far as at that point in time. Correct. By the grace of God, there's a hotel nearby, and there is a group of Killeen police officers taking an auto theft course. And they happen to hear the chaos. It's crazy how everything was put in place as far as help. You know what I mean?
I guess it sounds amazing, right? And it sounds like wow, but in the matter, I guess of what minutes and seconds, he's already murdered many people. Yeah,
but it's because people are scattered. Because can you imagine if they weren't nearby? How much more could have happened?
How much more damage?
Yeah. Even though when I tell you the tally, it's still terrible. So they were taking an auto theft course, and they saw the chaotic scene. One of them went outside and said, like, what's going on? Of course, a woman tells him, like, hey, there's a man inside the Lubys restaurant, and he's just killing people. He's shooting people. So, of course, at that point, all of them come out, put protective gear on, get their guns ready. And they all have to move, like, as much as you want to say, like, you got to go in there. No, at this point you have to, because you don't know what's going on inside, and you don't know where the shooter is at exactly. You don't know where those two narcotic officers are at this point. Everybody has to move, kind of in slow motion to try to get in there and see what they can do. So that's, as much as we want to say, like, they were there, it doesn't work that way.
Got it.
So, of course, they made their way towards the restaurant, and the only goal that they had was kill the gunman. So one of the narcotics officer kept his eye on the shooter and was able to shoot him, and it hits George in the hip. Then by that time, since George was hit at the hip, he's kind of hurt. So these two officers were able to make their way into the restaurant, and they began shooting at him, but of course they miss. By this time, George sees, like, oh shit, they're coming in. Like, it's no longer, it's gonna be that easy for him. So He drops to the floor and he kind of starts crawling to see where he can find safety because he still wants to do what he wants to do.
But he's dropped the gun, right?
No, he still has a gun. No,
Okay.
because remember, at this point, he's just hitting the hip, but he sees that they're coming in close to him, so he's now, he's no longer walking because if he walks, he's done.
What an interesting twist, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's fighting for his own safety.
Mm-hmm. And he makes his way towards the restrooms, and in those restrooms, they're barricaded because there's people in there. So he's trying to get in there, and he's trying to nudge his way in, but nope, it's not going to happen. So George sits outside, and the two officers are making their way towards him, using the truck as shield, asking George to surrender. But of course, George yells, "Fuck you," and aimed the gun towards the officers, started shooting at them. Luckily, he misses them. And then George again yells, "Fuck you, I'm going to kill more people." By this time, another officer is able to enter the building, and together all three officers shoot George, hitting him 2 more times. George knew that these officers were getting closer to him, and he was growing weaker because remember, he's hit in the hip and then 2 more times. So he had 1 more bullet left in his gun. George decides to take his own life, and it's a self-inflicted gunshot to the head that kills George. Outside of the Lubys restaurant, of course, emergency responders were ready to attend to the wounded. They also had Fort Hood U.S. Army helicopters landing on access roads, ready to fly anyone out that needed to be taken to the hospital ASAP.
Oh, that's good.
They also had military doctors assisting with the rescue, and they compared this to like a war zone, walking in there trying to figure out who survived, who didn't, trying to determine the bodies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And for 12 minutes, George managed to kill 23 people, execute 15 out of the 23, and injured more than 20 people. I want to say they tallied it to maybe 35 people that were injured. I may be wrong with that number.
That's still a lot.
That's still a lot. Lubys did reopen with a redesigned interior 5 months after the horrific attack, but shut down 9 years later, and now a Chinese restaurant sits in its place.
I don't know how anybody would want to go back to eat.
I mean, they were open for 9 years, so yeah. Killeen Community Center did dedicate a pink granite memorial with all the names of the Lubys victims that lost their lives that day.
That's so. I think it's not just heartbreaking, right? It's frightening to know that he's capable of doing this. His father knows that he has. I don't know what kind of doctor he is exactly, but
yeah, it didn't say. He just said it was a doctor, and I didn't look into it. And when I tried to do the research, it didn't give me much on his parents. It just gave me a little synopsis of them. So that they were divorced, and so on and so forth.
No, but even so, I think I can't be the first time he's given other or anyone no one's had warnings about him before. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No,
like he can't just be the father was like, I see this qualities and you fall under this category. Like there has to be other people that see it. He has so much hatred for women.
Yeah, because during the time that he was arrested, like I said, the last time where he was trying to fight for his license to be given back as a Marine or whatever it was, he was investigated because he's like, my rights were taken away. And when that person that investigated him you saw what he was talking about. And you saw that he was talking about a conspiracy with a group of white women against him. Like, you got to know something's wrong when people talk like that. You got to look into it. Like, and it just wasn't the first time. I
think it's because people don't want to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a matter of people don't want to get involved. And I don't understand this. We live in a really chaotic world. People need to start getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
Just say something because it matters.
Yeah.
Because what if it was your daughter or your cousin or your neighbor? What if it's it matters. Say something.
Yeah, and this happened the day after his 35th birthday. His birthday was the day before, and then he decided to do this, and that's what was crazy. Like, you just like it's like you didn't plan it, but you did plan it. So it's one of those like, yeah.
All I know is that this man deserves to be wherever he is. Mm-hmm. This is a really cruel way to treat human beings that did shit to you.
Yeah.
Nothing. That last bullet, I was like, fuck you, you coward.
Exactly, that's what I thought.
Because you don't want to go through pain. You don't want to survive this. You don't want to have to go to jail. You don't have to want to be responsible. That's why I tell you about the name. And it wasn't a thing to be rude. It was because he is to be held responsible for what he did. If he couldn't have the decency to like go to jail and take it, then at least put his name so then people know like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you, George.
So that was the story of Lubys Massacre. I had never heard of it.
I had never heard of it either.
But we were also young, so early 90s, we were in our early, like, I don't know, between 8 and 10.
4. And
Necio.
but anyway, with that said, thank you so much for listening. Dame un besito because we gotta go. Bye.